but let's see if we can make it work. So we're hanging out over here. I'm going to choose my floor tool. Well, it's complaining because I'm looking at the 3D view. Let me go ahead and click in so I'm in the plan view. Okay. You might notice that, hey, things grayed out. What's that all about? The reason things grayed out is we're now in a special mode. So we have some drawing tools up here, and here's the big green checkbox, or the X. That's the abandoned, we're not happy sort of tool. We can choose some different types. If you want to use the concrete slab, you can use that. If you want to use like a carpet or a wood finish, you can use that. Okay, choose whatever type you want. You say what level you're going to be on. Since we're on first floor, it's sort of assuming first floor, but we can make it a little bit higher or lower if we want to. Okay, we are ready to start drawing. Now, let me show you, I'm going to draw out here. Kind of give you a sense. Okay, if I try to close that now, okay, gonna work? No. It'll say, hey, lines must be in closed loops. The highlighted lines are open on one end. Continue. Again, sometimes we get this. Is that gonna work? No? Okay, you're good. They can't intersect each other. Now they're intersecting. How about now? Will that work? Yep. Looking good. Outside the house, but still looks good. We'll edit it. How about this? You think that'll work? Okay, let's give it a try. Okay, can anyone describe the rule? What's it doing? Actually, let me try this. I'll do one more. Ooh, this is going to be confusing. So what's happening? What it's doing, the outer boundary creates space. The second boundary says you're creating a void. The third boundary creates space again. It just alternates between creating, subtracting, creating, subtracting. So you can do that. That's actually okay. We're going to use that later when we put an atrium in, or we put a hole around a stairway or something like that. There's going to be reasons that's going to be useful to us. Okay, but for now, I'm going to get rid of it. Okay, we're going to go back over here to my building. So I'm looking at my building over here. I want to put a floor under there. So I'm going to go over here and say floor. Now, you're tempted to grab that line tool like I just did and just start drawing lines. But the problem with lines is lines are just lines and they don't really associate them with anything else. So if things change later, those lines will stay where they are. The boundary of the floor will stay. So I'm going to recommend you do something just a little bit different, and that is to choose this guy. This guy picks a wall. Okay, it's going to draw a line, but it's going to make that line be the core of the wall, and then it'll be associated with the wall. So if the wall moves, the line will move. Okay, and that's a good relationship. It's kind of like saying that the walls should go to level 2. Okay, saying that the floor edges go to the walls sort of builds a relationship. So later on, if we stretch the walls around, the structure will stretch. Okay? So the pick wall is one of my favorite tools. And what I'll do is click on that wall. And I'm just clicking on walls. Now, you're going to find there's some other little nuances to this. Sometimes if you have a lot of different little wall segments, it doesn't form a really clean boundary. For mine, it was pretty simple. So it did form it. Yes? But if you don't have like an enclosed structure, you have like open space. Not to worry. Not to worry. What we'll do is we'll just sort of figure out where the gap is. For example, if I didn't have a wall across there and it didn't do what it wanted to. what I need to do is just stretch the pink lines to put the floor there. So I can either stretch that pink line, like I just did there, or a very common way of cleaning up the boundary is to use the trim tool. So you could trim this pink line against that pink line and complete the boundary. Okay, but yeah, you can find with all the floor stuff, you know, all of our hassles come from just trimming that boundary or keeping that boundary looking really clean. Okay, so if you got that, go ahead and try the check mark, and we'll sort of see what sort of variations on a theme we have. See if people can create their floor. Most people got a floor? If you don't have a floor, holler. Or raise your way, or raise your hand anyway. Yes?
I think in the description there it said 2x10 joists. I think when we were looking at the elevations, it was a 4-inch to the first floor. So is it automatically putting those joists under?
Actually, at this point, this is a case where the model is saying something, but it's not really accurate for construction. Those joists are actually popping down into the ground right now. So we'd either have to sort of just put this as a slab, just on grade. Okay.
You could obviously throw that.
Yeah, or we could raise it up a little bit higher, or we could even cut out a little bit of the earth if we wanted to put a foundation that goes down and have a little bit of raised foundation. Any of those things will work. Okay, so I got my floor in there. Most people got a floor? Okay, you got a floor. If you can do floor, you can do roof. Because roofs are very, very similar to floors. Roofs just have well, 2 variations you have to worry about. Again, we're going to draw a boundary, and that boundary is going to be based on the walls. Okay, but let's think about roofs. As you think about roofs, and let's imagine we sort of put something right up on here, do roofs usually stop right at the wall, or do they continue a little bit further? Yeah, they usually have a little, we call it an overhang. And that overhang is good. It keeps the sun off our windows. It keeps the rain off. It kind of puts something over your head when you walk out the door. We usually have a little bit of an overhang. So what we're going to do is when we draw the boundary, we're going to tend to include a little bit of an overhang. Okay, and in a lot of older places, the overhang is even on all sides. But if you're a really good sustainable designer, you can play with that, and you can say that, oh, well, the overhang is really very important on the south side, or whichever side is the sunny side, for creating some shade, and it can be less on other sides. Okay, but in general, as a good starting point, you just put an overhang on all sides. And if you look at houses that are built here in this area, the overhang is usually around 1.5 feet or 2 feet, somewhere in there. If you're a fan of different architectural styles, like if you like prairie architecture, which I'm a big fan of, the overhangs are like 4 feet. They get out really far. Okay, but it's all just sort of an architectural decision. So let's go ahead and do that. That's one thing, is the overhang. The other thing has to do with whether or not the roof slopes. And as a starting point, let's just make a flat roof, and then we'll slope it. We'll start with flat. That's kind of the easiest, and then we'll slope it up from there. Okay, so I'm going to choose the roof tool. And the roof tool, again, has some sort of choices over here. I have some 2x8 rafters, some 2x10 rafters. I have something called sloped glazing, which for all you people who like curtain walls, you might be interested in that. That makes a glass roof. Okay, and some of you are already thinking ahead. I can see we're going to have some glass roofs. Okay, which can be cool, but has its own sustainability problems, but we'll talk about it later. Okay, so I'm just going to choose one of the sizes. Okay, and you'll notice I have a couple choices up here now. This little area is called the options bar, and in the options bar, the 2 important things to watch out for is we have this thing over here that says define slope. I'm just going to turn that off for now, because I don't want it to. I'm going to put an overhang on, and maybe I'll put an overhang of 2'0", something like that. So super. I got that. I could again draw, but I'm going to pick walls because I like to pick walls. That way everything stays hooked together. If the walls move, the roof moves too. Now, as I'm hovering, you might notice as I'm trying to click my wall, it says, hey, I'm going to put the roof boundary out here. And the reason it's putting it out there is that's that 2 feet. Okay, so you watch out. It'll depend on which side of the wall you click on, the inside or the outside. So I'm going to push towards the outside edge. I'll come over here, over here. It's a little strange right there, but I can still do it. It's right there. So see if you can make yourself a nice pink boundary. If you are having trouble making your pink boundary, you might need to do a little bit of trimming or something like that, but we got to get the complete loop again. Oh, actually, I made a mistake, but I will let it make its mistake. As I drew my roof, you see it's on the base level of first floor, which is probably not going to be a great place for the roof to be because it's going to kind of make it pretty squishy in there. So I can change the base level to level 2. Okay, I can change it later if I want to, but I'm going to change it to level 2 or roof level. Okay. Again, there's all these instances where if you make a mistake, it's easy to go back and change it later. I'm going to go through and say, finish that up. Okay. I got my little roof there. So it's not looking too bad. Okay. My little house is looking pretty good. Now, as I am looking at my little house here, let's go through and just kind of think about that roof for a second. I can edit the footprint of the roof. There's those pink lines. Let's say you want to put a little slope on this. Okay, so for people who do roofs and anyone who ever designs roofs, roofs can be really complicated because of all the sloping angles and how they all come together. So the simplest roof might be if I just slope it from one side. So if I say that side defines slope, okay, it'll slope from there. You have a little figure here, which is how big the slope should be. It's now 9 inches per 12 inches, which is actually a very steep roof. Let me go ahead and show it to you. Okay. So that's a little bit too much. Looks like a music box or something. If I want that to be a little less, oh, maybe 3 in 12 would be a little bit better. Or 2 in 12, something like that. So that's kind of a sort of a modern look if we go through and do something like that. Hey. Now, as you're looking at that, you're saying, okay, does anyone see a problem with the house at this point? It's breezy. You know, it's very well ventilated. Okay, but if you want to take care of that, here's what we can do. It turns out that all those different walls have a height to them. And in the spirit of constraints and tying things together, I could go ahead and put just sort of a dimension in there. But what I really want to have happen is, well, how would you describe it? You know, what should those walls do? If you were to just describe it in words, what do you think they should do? Go to the roof. Okay, so let's see if we can make it happen here. I'm going to go over here and choose my walls. There's one wall. A very kind of cool trick is if you're hovering over one wall and you tab, it'll actually grab the entire line of walls. Oh, you're seeing how useful that's going to be at some point. So again, let me do it again. I'm going to hover over one and I'll tab and it'll click and it'll get all those walls. Now, because I have some walls selected, you might see that over here in the green section, I actually have a choice there. It says attach the top. So I got these walls. I can say attach them to the roof. And now they actually slope up to it and they'll meet it. Okay, so I can attach walls to the roof. The nice thing if I attach walls to the roof is I can change the slope to be whatever I want to, and they'll all pop up. But let's talk about the variations we were seeing. Some people have a lot of slopes right now. Other people aren't able to slope it at all. So let's talk about the variations. If I choose the roof and I edit the footprint, you'll see right now I have these different lines. And in order to make the roof slope, I have to have one of the lines at least turn on and give it that slope. Okay, so I have just one turned on. If there was none turned on, let's choose it there. Okay, then I couldn't slope the roof at all. So I have to have one of them slope at all, at least. Okay, but let's talk about the variations because I think people are seeing some variations. If you have it sloping from one side, you get that long flat plane. Okay, if you have it sloping from two sides, okay, let me slope it from this side. Okay, you get that, which is kind of, oh, that's kind of more like the roof that we drew the other day together.
Well, I drew wrong.
That's okay. Okay, so that's kind of the two slope variation. What some of you are looking right now is the all slope variation. Let's take a look at that. How that happens is if all of your pink lines have the slope turned on, or if I use the same trick, just tab and turn them all on, okay, you get something called a hip roof. Okay, and that is that kind of very kind of classic, yeah, just a ranch house sort of style roof. Make that 512. Great. Okay, to finish today, we can answer some questions. We could stay after and answer some questions with anything that people are struggling with. But let me just kind of finish today with two last things to kind of leave you with. One is we've been building this thing, and I kept on talking about, oh, build it to the roof level, attach the floors to the walls, attach the roof to the walls. Yeah. So why was that important? And I'll demonstrate it right now. What happens is if you've built everything so that it's built as a series of parametric constraints, let me, for example, grab that wall and drag that wall forward. You'll see that what happens is the floor and the roof come with it. Okay, so let's try that again. Even over here, if I say that, for example, this wall over here is going to pull over here, okay, it extends and stretches with it. So as we're building in this simple little house, you say, oh, that's not such a big deal. But imagine you have like some 20-story building and you move a grid line, or you choose the elevator core and you move it over a few feet. You want it to actually sort of change on all 20 stories. You don't want to have to keep on changing it everywhere. So we're going to learn that building everything as a series of different constraints that are all tying together gives us an awful lot of power to change things easily. Okay, so hopefully you got some basic little house there. This is kind of the basis of what you're going to do for the assignment.